Hi everyone and welcome to another video by me, Nathan. As always, thank you for watching. Today I want to talk to you guys about Blue, White, Red Geist. Specifically, what should we do in the new metagame? We're going to be starting with the hashtag Team Geist list. This is a list that is my personal favorite and was kind of created as a collaborative effort between three primary guys, Larry Swayze, Jason Clark, and Scotty Mack. They took it to, I forget which GP they took it to, Worcester or something like that. Anyway, they all made day 2 with it. I think it's a great list. It's by far my favorite. So we're gonna start there, and we're gonna look at the metagame and see what changes it looks like we should make, and then I'm gonna go and run this deck through some videos for you guys, and we'll see how those changes look. And I'm fully expect and want you guys to comment with your opinions. Let me know what you've been trying. Let me know if I say I'm going to try this and you're like, dude, I tried that, it's not good, please tell me. And if you just have something I haven't even thought of, put it. You know, by sharing this information, hopefully it's going to make all of us be able to play a better game with the deck. Okay, so let's take a look at that metagame. Now, I want to give them credit. All of these images come from MTG Goldfish. I think that they do a great job, and you should go check out the site if you haven't. So this is the top 12 here. I do have screenshots going past that, but you know, I really thought, you know, let's just look and talk about mainly what we're going to see the most of. So I added up the percentages. You know, it almost looks, this kind of makes it look misleading because you have, like, say, Delver in the 1st and 5th slot. Well, that's because some lists are running to Dismember. So MTG Goldfish kind of splits it up into 2 different groups. But it's Blue Red Delver. It's either going to be the tempo version or the kind of all-in on Monastery Swiftspear, more aggressive version. But if we add those up, there is an amazing 21% of the format playing in these modern daily events Blue Red Delver. That is a lot. I cannot remember the last time. I don't think I've ever seen a number that high. Followed up is actually not Affinity, even though that's how it looks. If you add up the various versions of Burn, in fact, if I jump one more screen over here, you can see that there's Rug Burn, which is just because they have like an Ancient Grudge on the board or something like that, and Black because they have, they're just like the red-black version. But I'm throwing them all together. It's Burn. In fact, I did not even add that last one, that black, red, green. I know I didn't add it, so we can actually probably change this to just an 11. And I'm rounding up on these, by the way. But, so coming up second here is actually Burn and different flavors of it. Burn's incredibly good right now. Burn was already, like, I would say a tier 2 deck. It was good. You could just straight out lose to it. Then they printed Eidolon of the Great Revel, and I think Burn was probably a solid tier 1.5. You could still beat it. You had to get the right cards. Obviously, we benefited a lot because we were running Lightning Helix, but Eidolon was annoying. Then they printed Treasure Cruise, and Burn just got ridiculous. They can essentially just dump their hand, deal a bunch of damage, and then cruise, get rid of all that stuff, and get a bunch more burn spells. So, yeah, Burn is at 11%. Affinity is at 8. And Pod and Scapeshift are tied for 4th and 5th. We followed up with Splinter Twin at 3, Amulet of Vigor at 2, and Merfolk at 2 as well. So, some of these decks we already have a reasonable matchup against. I think we have a reasonable matchup against Affinity. Now, we can straight out lose. And I think our Affinity matchup is actually better when the deck was running Spell Snare, but we're not. But we pack so much removal that we should, I think the match is in our favor. Kind of the same thing with Merfolk, although Merfolk can be more problematic. They're more of a tempo deck. They do run counter magic, but I think if both decks are drawing reasonably well, I think because we run so much removal, and essentially because we run so much removal, I think that this deck has a slight edge. But I have lost many times to Merfolk. The deck, if you're not running sweepers, the deck is quite good. But then, you know, oh, and also I think we should do okay against Delver. The downside is, even if we The problem is we're likely in a lot of times going to get into a position where we manage the board because they're more likely to be beat down in the matchup. They're going to play. They're the one playing the turn one threat, which puts us in an automatic, more controlling role because we have to deal with what they've committed to the board. But we do have an uninteractable a threat that they can't interact with in Geist of St. Traft that deals a ton of damage, which is fantastic. But our matchup, again, we run so much removal. You would hope that we could still get there, and I think what probably happens is that we quote unquote get there, and then they treasure cruise, and we're suddenly completely behind now on cards. You know, we've managed the threats, we're ready to try to win, and they treasure cruise. So then, you know, we have Pod, but we already had a good sideboard playing against Pod. I intend to keep that, or most of it. Scapeshift and Splinter Twin both probably get a lot better. Actually, Splinter Twin kind of wasn't around. I didn't expect that to last. I think Splinter Twin gets a lot better with Dig Through Time, and I think Scapeshift gets a lot better with Dig Through Time. Amulet of Vigor, that's probably not going to stay there. A lot of these sort of more fringe decks, when you get out of the top 8, start to fluctuate a lot. You know, sometimes you'll see a lot of Hate Bears or Death and Taxes. Merfolk will make a resurgence. Amulet of Vigor will pop out and then fade away. Sometimes you see Living End and then it fades away. So, Amulet of Vigor is not really something I plan to metagame against. We have Path of Exiles for their Titans. They can resolve that Hive Mind, which, if we haven't killed them by the time they're resolving Hive Mind, we're probably going to die. So our plan for them, obviously, is to use Path on their Titans and kill them with Geist of St. Traft. And then Merfolk, they are definitely the beatdown. Our plan is to manage the board. I don't think we're going to have room for a sweeper, but I also don't think Merfolk's probably going to stay in that spot unless, I haven't played the matchup. Maybe Merfolk actually has a really good matchup against Delver. I would think that its matchup against Meliora Pod is... maybe they're actually... I'm not sure on that one, but maybe they're just faster than Bird. I don't know. Maybe Merfolk is well positioned right now. We'll see where that goes. But I'm not going to... I don't think... Because they're at the bottom of the list, I'm not going to bring in a dedicated sideboard card, especially considering that our matchup should already be decent against them. So let's look at the other slides real quick. We also have Chazaloo, which is Zoo running Chalice of the Void to combat Lightning Bolt, to combat the Delver decks. More Burn, Boggles. We're really getting low now. Boggles is... You see it occasionally. Our metagame plan against Boggles is to hope we don't play it. And if we have to play it, then we have Wear Tears and Engineered Explosives. Jund is all the way in... That was top 12, 13, 14, 15, 17th place. That is insane. Jund and Junk were oftentimes... or just GBX at the top. So the metagame has shifted a lot, which means some of our sideboard cards are going to have to change. Like, I don't think that Karanos is necessarily good in the main in this meta. I'm not even sure if he belongs in the deck, considering what the metagame is like, but we're going to talk about that. And there you have the rest, and then getting way down into the dredges, you have even the less played decks, including our very own Blue-White Red Control running Geist of St. Traft. Okay, so that's enough looking at slides. Let's look at Moto. What we have on the screen here is if you want to call it stock, the stock or the well-known version of Blue-White Red Geist. I'm not going to do a deck tech. You guys probably already know what this deck does, but essentially, if you're not sure, it's fully committed to Geist by running all of the removal spells, 4 Path, 4 Bolt, 4 Helix, 3 Electrolyze. It kind of gets on the tempo plan with these remands and then buys it all back with Snapcaster Mage to make lightning bolts and helixes and sometimes even Electrolyze, the win condition that you need once you've been able to get damage in. With Geist of St. Traft, it's a more threat-dense version than previous versions of the deck. We have the 3 Restoration Angels, Thundermaw Hellcat as a finisher, 3 Vendilion Cliques. Interestingly enough, the Snapcaster Mage, Vendilion Clique, Restoration Angel combo comes up a lot more often when you're running more of them than you think it would. And Vendilion Clique is great in a lot of matchups as a way to get guys through because you click them at their draw step, you get rid of something that you don't want to see like Liliana, or maybe get rid of their Wrath, or get rid of their counter, or they just counter Vendilion Clique, which means that you can then just untap and play Geist of St. Traft. So it has a lot of synergy with getting guys through, and a plan to keep all of those. In the sideboard, we had our Celestial Purge, which was primarily for Jund. It also hits Storm. You also bring it in against Burn because you could exile some other guys. Aven Mindcensor for Pod, Pulse of the Fields for Burn, Shadowstorm for Affinity, Magma Sprays for Pod, Counterflux for the Control Mirror against Scapeshift, probably Splinter Twin, Wear Tears for Affinity, for It's also Wear Tear and Engineered Explosive are both like just good generic spells. They sometimes you run into some weird janky deck and you realize that these cards are going to be good. But Wear Tear is really for affinity, infect, because they have the artifact Inkmoth Nexus, and then Engineered Explosive. You'd bring it against Jund and Junk lists. You'd bring it against Storm. You'd bring it against Infect. Bring it against a lot of things. And then Batterskull for just other mid-range decks. Now, speaking of quote-unquote other mid-range decks, the only mid-range deck on this top 8 right now is Pod. And Pod is, while technically a mid-range deck, that's also a mid-range deck. It's also a combo deck. So maybe some of these slower, grindier spells like Karanos, considering that people are going to be killing us with Burn, attacking us with Delvers, and killing us with Affinity, and going infinite with Splinter Twin, and comboing us out with Scape Shift. Maybe Karanos isn't what we want to see. Okay, so that's the deck that we had. Let's look at the deck that we're going to try. Now, these are some card choices that I made, and I'm going to go ahead and explain what the changes were. There you go, Moto. Okay, so let's start with the mana base. The mana base is the same, but I cut Moorland Haunt in favor of a Hallowed Fountain. We're going to talk more about the sideboard cards in a minute, but one of the reasons I wanted another Hallowed Fountain was because we're going to run 3 core Firewalkers for the burn matchup. The other thing is, if we're going to be, using Dig Through Times, I don't think we want to be exiling things out of our graveyard, especially our creatures. We want to exile our creatures, not our spells. Now, we are going to run 2 Dig Through Times and the 4 Snapcaster Mages. I've been testing this. I tested 2 Dig Through Times. I tested 1 Dig Through Time. And there are times when 2 Dig Through Times are awkward, but it's a spell you want to see. It is incredibly powerful. And what I found is that we're not trying to cast Dig Through Time typically on turn 2 or 3. So Dig Through Time is a spell that we can actually, like I said, sometimes you get multiples and it's awkward, but sometimes you're just going to cast it on turn 4 or 5, and you're going to be able to exile like 2 lands and maybe a dead Vendilion Clique or something like that, or a couple of lands. So, my point is, because you can play it at instant speed, you don't have to only cast it for 2. You can be more selective about what you are actually exiling from your graveyard. Therefore, you can try to sustain some of the synergy with Snapcaster Mage. And now sometimes you do have to exile one of the cards you want for Snap, but sometimes you can make a choice, right? Like you're like, well, I'm going to exile the Path, but I'm going to keep the Bolt. So because you're a bigger mana deck than say like Delver, you have the option to play it later and not have to delve for the entire Delve amount. Some of the other changes are we dropped an Electrolyze for a dig, and we dropped the Karanos for a dig. Now, we also dropped a Path to Exile. One of those reasons is there's less Tarmogoyf and there's more Delver. So Forked Bolt kills a turn 1 Delver, doesn't give them a land. Forked Bolt also kills a bird from Pod. And Forked Bolt, just when there's a lot of like little guys with 1 toughness coming from Delver, when Delver's 21% of the metagame, I mean, maybe we wouldn't just run 2 of these, but I want to run 1 and see how it works out. Now, Path to Exile, we still want that in the Pod matchup, but we do run 2 Magma Sprays in the board. So for right now, I'm not saying it's a concession I'm going to stick with, but it's something that I want to try. There's less Tarmogoyf, so we technically have less of a need for cards like Vendilion Clique. Now, I still want to run the 4 Remands. I still think Remand's a fantastic spell. It's not necessarily as good against. It's not great against Burn. It's not great against Affinity, but I still feel like going turn 1 Bolt, turn 2 Remand into turn 3 Geist with a clear board is one of the best things that the deck can be doing for itself. I'm not willing to cut any Bolts, and I'm not willing to cut any Helixes. Those are our secondary win conditions. By the way, Forked Bolt also does go to the face, so that's good. I want to keep the Vendilion Cliques. I think they're good in the Delver matchup. They block. They can block Delver of Secrets, and also just we have the potential maybe to get rid of something like a Treasure Cruise before they have a chance to cast it. Of course, we're going to run 4 Geist. It would be nice to run more Electrolyzes, but we had to make a cut somewhere, and unfortunately, Electrolyze, while potentially being great, setting up a great 2-for-1 in the Delver matchups, it is a little bit harder to resolve against Delver when they're, running Mana Leaks and Spell Pierces and things like that. And, I think if we're going to have 1 Curve Topper, and we want to consider one more option, considering Thunderbolt Holokite, Karanos, and I think life gain's kind of important right now when people are trying to burn you out and tempo you out with Delver, and kill you with Affinity. I actually think that Baneslayer Angel is worth considering. Now, I want to try Batterskull over Baneslayer Angel. I actually kind of do want to try Baneslayer Angel, but you know, there's less ways. You know, blue-red, burn, Affinity, pod, Scape Shift, Splinter Twin. Really, the only deck on this list that probably runs a way to kill Baneslayer Angel is probably pod. So, you know, maybe we do want a Baneslayer Angel. I think it's totally worth considering. I do want to try it. Maybe let's put it in Sideboard for now. I don't think we're actually going to run it, but I do want to try it. But right now, the reason we're trying to try Batterskull is, you know, if we can resolve a Batterskull, if we can delay dying with cards like Lightning Helix and resolve a Batterskull in game 1 against burn and then attack with it, probably going to win that match, or hopefully going to win that match. That gaining life is really relevant. We already know it's good against pod. And against Delver, it's good in that, you know, if we play a Batterskull and they Vapor Snag the Germ token, obviously that's a tempo loss for us, but we still get to keep our Batterskull on the battlefield. We can still equip it to any number of creatures. If we play Baneslayer Angel and then they go Vapor Snag, that's a really huge tempo loss that we got absolutely nothing out of. So that makes me kind of want to try Batterskull over Baneslayer Angel, but Baneslayer Angel looks like it could be really good right now. Baneslayer Angel wasn't good when there was a lot of black, you know, slaughter packs and things like that running around that could kill it, but none of that is really being run right now, and it makes me excited to give Baneslayer Angel a try. You know, maybe we'll just squeeze it into the board somehow just so we can try it out. But I think for right now, our curve topper is going to be Batterskull. I will play some games with Baneslayer Angel because I really want to see how it is in the meta right now. Now, obviously, neither of these spells are probably going to be good against something like Splinter Twin. You know, I think Splinter Twin and Scape Shift are going to be harder to combat with Dig Through Time. You're going to have to respect the combo a lot more. You know, if you tap out and they go end of turn Dig Through Time, that's really kind of worrisome. So, or if they've played a Dig Through Time before, you know, you didn't have a Remand before you play your Batterskull, then tapping out for Batterskull is probably not something you're going to be able to do, or Baneslayer Angels. So, things to think about. Definitely going to keep the Marine Restoration Angels. This is the board that I want to run. Let me know what you guys think. We didn't change much. Quick wrap up. We cut the Moorland Haunt, put in a Hallowed Fountain so that we can cast Core Firewalker in our matchups against burn. Also, I did think about running an additional fetch land, but we were running 8 fetches already and 8 fetchable sources, meaning occasionally our fetch lands were going to be dead, and I think upping that to 9 fetch lands and 8 fetchable sources just so that we can try to get an extra land in the air to power Dig Through Time statistically probably isn't worth it, at the risk of occasionally maybe having bad mana. Not bad, but just having some of those fetches be dead later. So made that change. Cut the path to Exile because there's left Tombercoifs in favor of a Forked Bolt. Keeping all the Remand, Snapcaster Mages, Helixes, Cliques, Geists, cutting Electrolyze for a Dig Through Time, cutting Karanos for a Dig Through Time, keeping the Angels, and switching from Karanos and Hellkite in as our curve topper in our main board to a Singleton Batterskull. Now, a note on Dig Through Time, that means that we're more likely to find things like a Singleton Batterskull, and it makes our one-ofs in our sideboard a lot better in games 2 and 3. So let's take a look at the sideboard. In the sideboard, I have 1 Engineered Explosives. I don't want to get rid of it. It just has too much utility, but we're primarily wanted Engineered Explosives in the Jund and Junk, just in the green-black matchups. That's not as prevalent right now, so I think we can cut it. Wear Tear's Affinity is 3rd on the list. So I still want to keep our primary source of artifact hate. And I think also the one of Shatterstorm gets a lot better with Dig Through Time. There is a lot of affinity. I think we want to keep running Shatterstorm. Now, this is kind of interesting. Magma Spray is actually, I think, fairly good against Delver. And what I've been doing against Blue-Red Delver is taking out 2 Lightning Helixes and bringing in 2 Magma Sprays. What I'm essentially doing is getting 2 removal spells that are more difficult to resolve against Delver because it's Magma Spray's cheaper, so it makes it easier to play around Spell Pierce. Spell Snare is dead against Magma Spray. So I feel like that's a fair matchup. Now, we do lose some of our ability to kill them by taking out the Helixes, but already they're going to be probably putting us... They're going to be the beatdown because they're probably going to go turn 1 Delver or turn 1 Monastery Swift Spear. So we already are more on the plane of having to deal with their threats as opposed to kill them before they can kill us. So I think the Magic Sprays are good against Delver. I also want to try Electrickery, and I want to try Volcanic Fallout. I've actually been testing Volcanic Fallout. I've had a couple times that it's been amazing, but the one thing is Blue-Red Delver does a lot of Ataxian probing, so sometimes they just see it, and then they just play around your sweeper. But, I don't know if Electrickery, I don't know if I went 2 Electrickeries, 2 Volcanic Fallouts, a split. I'm not sure, so I'm going to run one of each for the Blue-Red Delver matchup. Combustus for Twin. It also has some splash damage against Merfolk because it can kill Kira, the Great Glass Spinner. I do want to run 4 core Firewalkers for the Burn matchup. Burn is the second most. It's 11%. And like I said, with Eidolon and with Treasure Cruise, it's a good deck. Counterflux for Scapeshift. Our primary plan against Scapeshift is to race them. We also have Aven Mindcensor against Scapeshift. Shadowstorm, we said, is for Affinity. And as much as I really kind of do want to try this Bane Slayer Angel, because I don't think there's a whole lot that kills it right now. I feel like it's either going to be Bane Slayer Angel or Batterskull. I don't think I'm going to be doing a Batterskull and a Bane Slayer Angel. Although maybe, maybe we do. Maybe we want to try something like this and squeeze it in there somewhere. I'm not sure where. It's weird to add too. Maybe we want to try this. Let me know what you guys think. I want to know, what are your thoughts on Bane Slayer Angel? If we're looking at this top 8, there's things that can bounce it, but nothing that is really going to kill it right now. Interesting enough, like Splinter Twin does run Flame Slash, and Flame Slash can kill Batterskull. Can't kill Bane Slayer Angel. So, I do kind of want, maybe we just cram it in the board. What would we cut for if we wanted to cram it in the board so that we can test it? We've already cut an Aven Mindcensor. I'm going to try them exclusively. I'll try some games with it and some games without it. Okay, so that's what I'm going to try with. That's my thoughts on Team Geist right now. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know what you've tested. Let me know what you've tried. I can't, if you're wondering how Dig Through Time's been, it's been awesome. It's sometimes been not great. But I think for the most part, when you cast it, you just realize how incredibly powerful it is. And, if other decks are treasure cruising and if other decks are sort of gaining advantages, then, I think it's wrong for us not to be on that plan at all. And again, Dig Through Time makes your sideboard games a lot better because you're much more likely to find your 1-ofs. So yeah, sideboard, we still have the Wear Tear, the Engineered Explosives, the Electrickery, Magma Spray, Volcanic Fallout for Delver, Combust for Splinter Twin, primarily Core Firewalker for Burn. We cut an Aven Mindcensor. We didn't really want to. I don't want to make our matchup against Pod worse. I just don't know where else I would fit it. I mean, I guess I could cut Engineered Explosives altogether to run an Aven Mindcensor, but I feel like we want an Engineered Explosives, at least one of. It's just such a versatile spell. We could just do this, but I feel like I don't think that's right either. Maybe it is. I mean, Affinity's third. We are running a Shadow Storm. We do have a bunch of removal. So we could, in theory, bring in the... I have an idea. This is what we're going to do. This is not finalized. I want to keep that in mind. We're going to try this. Let's just... I want to see how this works out. I want this in my sideboard so that I can try to cast it, and then maybe decide, what, it seemed like it was going to be great, but it isn't, so we're going to put it in the sideboard, or we're going to take it back out, and maybe we'll bring in another Wear Tear. But anyway, all right, guys. Wrapping up. Like I said, let me know what you think. Let me know what you've tried. I'm looking forward to what you guys have to say. Let me know what you think about these decisions. Let me know if you think I was wrong or right. Let's get some discussion going, and hopefully everybody that watches this channel, including myself, will all become better pilots and make some better choices based on our discussions. Thanks a lot for watching, guys, and I'll talk to you soon.